So today I'm going to show you how to run chi-square test of independence using Jamovi software. Before I begin, let me remind you that chi-square test of independence is used to assess whether there is a significant association between two categorical variables. These categorical variables can be nominal or ordinal. Here we are going to examine whether there is a significant association between two nominal variables. The first nominal variable is gender, which has two categories, females and males. The other one is religion, which has two categories as well, Muslim and Christian. We want to assess whether there's a significant association between gender and religion. There's a research question here that we want to answer. Is there a significant association between gender and religion preference? In other words, we want to conduct a hypothesis to examine whether there is a significant difference in religion preference among the males and females. So our null hypothesis will be gender and religion are independent, and the alternative hypothesis will be gender and religion are associated. We shall use a significance level or alpha of value 0.05. Alright, let's go back to Jamovi. So to run chi-square test, go to Analysis, click Frequencies tab, go to Independent Samples chi-square test of association. And it doesn't really matter which variable to move into rows and which one to move into columns, but most people like moving the response variable into rows and independent variable into columns. Now I'm going to move gender into columns and religion into rows because I want to determine whether gender has a significant effect on religion preference. Alright, here is a contingency table that generally shows row counts. Out of 1040 females, 782 prefer being Muslims and 258 prefer being Christians. Again, out of 446 males, 247 prefer being Christians and 199 prefer being Muslims. A total of 981 respondents reported that they prefer being Muslims, and 505 respondents reported that they prefer being Christians. I'm going to add expected frequencies and percentages to our contingency table here. So I click Cells. Observed count is checked by default. I'm going to check expected counts, and I need percentages within column. So we check column and back to our cross tab again. We now have expected counts and percentages within column. Let's begin with expected counts. If there were no gender differences, then we would expect 687 females to report that they prefer being Muslims, and 294 males to report that they prefer being Muslims. Again, if there were no gender difference, we would expect 353 females to report that they prefer being Christians in comparison to 152 males. Let's look at percentages within column. 75.2% of the females prefer being Muslims in comparison to 44.6% of the males. Again, 55.4% of the males prefer being Christians in comparison to 24.8% of the females. So the contingency table here suggests that there's a significant association between the two variables, religion and gender. You can see that majority of the females, that is 75.2%, prefer being Muslims, and majority of the males, that is 55.4%, prefer being Christians. Another thing to note here is that all the expected counts are greater than 5 here, and so the chi-square assumption that all expected counts must be 5 or more has been met. So we are good to proceed with conducting chi-square test as a measure of statistical significance. Otherwise, we would use Fisher's exact test. So let's proceed to a chi-square test. A chi-square is checked by default here. A confidence interval is also checked by default. We shall leave them like that. Let's proceed to hypothesis. Group 1 not equal to group 2 checked by default. But even if you check the second one or the third one, nothing changes. So we just leave it with the default, group 1 not equal to group 2. Let's proceed to measures of the effect size. We shall use phi and Cramer's V here. We are selecting under nominal because we have two nominal categorical variables, gender and religion. But if you had ordinal categorical variables, then you would select one of these three measures of effect size. So we have selected phi in Cramer's V, though we are really interested in phi here, not Cramer's V. Alright, let's come back to our results here. There are two additional tables here. Let's begin with chi-square test results. There are values here. The first one is chi-square value, which is 130. The next one is degrees of freedom, which is 1. And then we have the significance, or the p-value, which is a very small value that is less than 0.01. The other one is number of respondents, n, 1486. Now let's come back to the p-value here. It's a too low number. The number is too small. It's less than 0.01, and by default it is less than our level of significance, which is 0.05. This implies that we have significant results here. In other words, it means that religion and gender are significantly associated. Next, let's move to measures of effect size. Down here, we have phi coefficient and Cramer's V. We shall use phi coefficient here because we have a 2 by 2 table, which is a perfect square. If we had more than 2 by 2 table, maybe 3 by 3 and so on, then we would use Cramer's V. But it's important to note here that if you have a 2 by 2 table, 2 by 3 and 3 by 2, then the values of phi coefficient and Cramer's V are identical. Like you can see, they are identical here. But let's bear in mind that we should use phi coefficient here because we have a 2 by 2 table. Next, I'm going to construct a bar plot here so that we visualize the counts in each category. So I will click plots, bar plot. I will check bar plot and I will use counts. Then under bar type, side by side has been checked by default. The variable that I had put under columns is gender. So I will select columns here because I want gender to be in the x-axis. And we have the bar plot here. Let's begin with the key here. A blue color represents Muslims and brown color represents Christians. So majority of the females reported that they prefer being Muslims, and majority of the males reported that they prefer being Christians. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to report these results in APS style. Let me bring my Word document here. Now, because our results are statistically significant here. You report that it was found that there is a significant difference in religion preference among the males and females. And you need to add some statistics here. The first one is x squared. Make sure you make true a superscript. Open your parentheses and write the number of participants. Now, number of participants here is 1,486. The next one is the degrees of freedom, which is 1. Let me show you how the degree of freedom was obtained here. So to find the degree of freedom, let me just show you the contingency table here again. So you take the number of categories of the column variable, we call it C, subtract 1, and you multiply by the number of categories in the row variable minus 1. So R minus 1. So we have 2 categories in the column variable. So 2 minus 1, that's 1. Multiply by, we also have 2 categories in the row variable. So subtract 1, have 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. That's why we have 1 degree of freedom here. Right, close the parentheses and now write the chi-square value. Our chi-square value is 130. So 130, put 0.0 to AP style. The next statistic is the p-value, and the p-value is a small number less than 0.001, and by default it's less than our significance level, which is 0.05. The last statistic to add is the effect size, which is phi, and phi value here is 0.296, and in APA style you report it to 2 decimal places, so it is 0.30. You also need to add some bit of observation from the contingency table. So you write the percentage, the percentage of people who prefer being Muslims is 75% as compared to 45%. 45% of the males. Yes, this can be seen from the cross tabulation table here. You see 75% of the females prefer being Muslims in comparison to 45% of the males. Or you can say 55% of the males prefer being Christians as compared to 25% of the females. Alright, I want to talk a little bit about the effect size phi. Allow me to move this one here. I want to talk about the phi coefficient. So the first thing to note is that phi ranges in value from 0 to 1. Values close to 0 represent a weak relationship, and values close to 1 represent a strong relationship. And by convention, a value of 0.1 represents a small effect. A value of 0.3 represents a medium effect, or moderate effect, and the value 0.5 represents a strong effect. Yeah, this is how you interpret values of phi. And let's come back to our observed effect size here, phi or value uh, 0.3. So this means that there is a moderate effect uh, in the relationship between religion and gender. Uh, I forgot to put this. Make sure I put this in italics. Italicize P as well. Italicize phi as well. This is how you report the statistics in APA style. Okay, so that's how you run chi-square test of independence in Jamovi software, and this is how you report the results in APA style. Nice time. Let's meet next time.